Welcome back to Attitude F Results presented by Teamwork Online. And for the first time in a podcast episode, I am announcing our brand new partnership with General Sports Worldwide and specifically the Clubhouse. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a big one. The Clubhouse is a platform that you now have access to over 160 professionals in the sports industry because of our partnership. Were you frozen in reaching out to individuals? Were you not doing what you should be doing and reaching out on LinkedIn to multiple people? Were people just not responding to you? Guess what? With this partnership, the Clubhouse actually forces people to reach out to you. Hunter and I are mentors on there as mentors, and with the rest of us, there are 160 professionals in the sports industry that have come to the Clubhouse and said, I want to help. If you do not utilize the Clubhouse, you are only hurting yourself. Let me say that again. If you do not use the Clubhouse, you are only hurting yourself. This is not just for sales. This is for every industry that the sports realm has to offer. You now have access and no excuses. So we are doing this partnership for you. We will have, Attitude F Results will have a spot on the Clubhouse where all of our podcasts will live, almost like an Attitude Effort Results library. In addition to that, you now have access through us and through the Clubhouse to reach professional individuals in the sports industry. So you now have no excuses anymore. It's your turn to be elite. In addition to that, I want to mention a couple schools that we partnered with recently. University of Iowa obviously is massive. My alma mater, Hunter's alma mater, a massive educational institute in the sports industry. We have also since partnered with Xavier and Tampa, Baylor, which we'll have more to come on soon, TCU, University of North Carolina. We're working with Wake Forest, and we are also working with the Student Athlete Advisory Committee. Any athletes out there, the SAAC is massive across all division platforms. We're going to be working specifically right now with the ACC and NCAA Division I. I can't believe I just said that out loud. I was not prepared on how I would think after saying that Attitude for Results has an opportunity to partner with the ACC and NCAA Division I. And we're doing it for you. We are doing it for you. And we want to continue to grow. Xavier University and the University of Tampa have put Attitude for Results in their monthly emails to their entire student base and to their sport and recreation management and sport business programs. And that's because of you. And we want to continue growing. So if you're in a university out there in a program and you want to sponsor with us and you want me to come speak in a class or Hunter to come speak in a class, or you want to partner with us, grow your socials, allow other people to be an impact, reach out to us. Let's do that. All right. Reason for today's episode. Oh boy, today's episode is good. This might be my favorite topic of all time. The reason for today's episode, one, it was brought to us by a listener. So thank you very much. As you guys continue to grow in your career and as you continue to impact people, reach out to us. We want to do episodes for you. So this one specifically came from one of our listeners. We're taking a topic that somebody wanted help with, and we are providing personal examples and actionable steps. Relationships are the most important thing in your life. Promise you, that's guaranteed. Relationships. Everything is built on relationships. Today we're going to talk about the importance of relationships. I'm going to share some personal stories, and then we're going to give you actionable steps. As you guys know, I love actionable steps. We're going to give you some of those on how to cultivate relationships and get what you want in life. And sometimes it might seem like manipulation. Because here's the first thing. I'll never check out at 11 o'clock a.m. from a hotel again in my life. Unless I want to or don't need to be there till 11. Other than that, I will always check out after. The reason why, I have built a muscle of cultivating relationships, and I'm able to understand how people work and how to articulate what I want. The best thing about that is that in my relationships in my life, I pretty much get what I want, and I say that very humbly. Sometimes my cousins are like, you literally just get what you want. I don't get it. I don't understand it. But you manipulate people and you want. I'm like, well, no, I've worked on this skill, and now I have the opportunity to do that. The best thing about it is Callie's father is a salesman, and now her husband is a salesman, and so she does it to me now also. So that's a fun little war we get to do with each other on a daily basis to go back and forth in a match of ping pong there. Importance of relationships. Who has a best friend? Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you have a best friend. Why are they your best friend? What is the importance of that relationship for you? Why is that relationship important to you? Think of other relationships in your life. We all have them. My question for you today is, why do we have those relationships? Why are those relationships that you're thinking about right now important to you? And from an episode previously, are those friendships your anchor? You guys don't really want to listen to me talk at you, so we did some research again. And this time we took it from Harvard. So if you don't listen to me, or you don't trust me, or you don't think what I have to say is valuable, let's at least just listen from the University of Harvard, or Harvard University. It's probably Harvard University. All right, dozens of studies that they've conducted have shown that people who have social support from family, friends, and their community are happier, have fewer health problems, and live longer. You think importance of our relationship? Health, happiness, and you live longer. Who doesn't want those three things? If you don't want those three things, you're probably not listening right now. Conversely, on the opposite side, conversely is a big word. I had to look it up before I spoke on it. Conversely, a relative lack of social ties is associated with depression and later life cognitive decline. It also has an increased rate of mortality. That's death for all of you that don't know what mortality is. For example, listen, they found that it helps relieve harmful levels of stress, which can adversely affect coronary arteries. Guys, relationships actually affect your body, your mental state, your body, your output, which is happiness. Okay? Relationships affect what comes in, your mentality, your actual physical body, and your output, which is happiness. That's what makes relationships important. A lot of people say out there that relationships are important because it's about who you know. It's about who you know. Who's heard that line before? Oh, man, it's all about who you know. It's all about who you know. Wrong. If you've actually heard that before, that's wrong. And the reason it's wrong, it's not about who you know. It's about who knows you. It could be similar, but that is 100% different. It's not about who you know. It's about who knows you. Fun story. I went to Minnesota when I was in college and interviewed for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Happened to run into Adam Silver when we were there. Walked past him, looked at him, I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird. Adam Silver's here. So I go to the guy who was interviewing me at the time, and he's like, oh, yeah, he goes to the NBA, like all the teams at least once a year. He happens to be here today. They were playing the Warriors at the time. It was the year the Warriors won their last championship. And so I get there, I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. He's like, yeah, you're actually going to sit in a meeting with Adam Silver after, and he like says hi to everybody, like, congrats, this is a pretty big day, you're welcome, have some fun. So we listen to him, and I get to talk to Adam Silver for like a really good, long 5 or 6 seconds, like a solid 5 or 6 seconds. Get to shake Adam Silver's hand. If you don't know who Adam Silver is, he's the commissioner of the NBA. Does me knowing Adam Silver help me in any way in my life ever? No. That's the problem with today's society is we're all looking at these famous people like, oh, I know them, I know them, I know them. What are they doing for you? What are you doing for them? I'm not doing anything for Adam Silver. Actually, right now, I am producing revenue in the NBA. So maybe I actually am in this specific instance. Bad instance. But Adam Silver's not going to get me a job because I don't know him. However, there was a guy in the exact same trip who was a director with the Timberwolves at the time, who I got to know well and who knew me because of the relationship that we cultivated, the relationship that we built, the relationship that we created. And he happened to be the vice president of the Miami Dolphins when I went to interview for the Dolphins 2 years later. Do you think that helped? 100%. I didn't even interview at that point because we had cultivated a relationship. He knew me. That's the difference. It's not about who you know. It's about who knows you. The biggest difference between those two statements is cultivating a relationship. And that's what we're talking about today, is cultivating relationships. Relationships are built on what you're willing to do for others, not the other way around. It's not about what you can do for me. When we started this podcast, I went to Hunter and said, hey, I need some help with this podcast. Here's what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to give you a platform. I'm going to give you access. I'm going to have a relationship with you. We're going to have great conversations. We're going to learn and grow together. I didn't go to him and say, hey, man, I need you to run this podcast for me. Like, if I go to him and say, hey, I need something from you, why is he in a position where he's like, oh, yeah, dude, I would love to give everything I have and get nothing in return? Like, that's not how relationships work. It's about what you can do for others. Relationships shrink the learning gap. I promise you, if you start a relationship by giving to them emotionally, mentally, financially, the value of time, your relationship has a better chance to survive and thrive in this world. In addition to that, relationships shrink the learning gap. They allow you to speed up the learning and development process. They also give you access to other people that you might not even know existed. They give you access to knowledge and information that you might not even know existed. Here's a fun story for you about cultivating relationships. Again, an individual that listens to this podcast reached out and was like, hey man, how do you have all these strong relationships? How do you cultivate these relationships? Everyone's like, oh, it's all about relationships. How do you actually do it? Here's how you do it. Perfect example. I manage 2 different luxury spaces with the Phoenix Suns. I happen to be down courtside, busting my butt in the beginning of the year last year, running up and down, helping people out, going and grabbing a gift for somebody, going and saying hi to somebody, going and talking with a different person, running around. I'm dripping in sweat in my suit, running all over the place in one of these luxury spaces, which happened to be close to courtside. I then, after, go back up to the suite level club, to the second space that I managed at the time. And now I get to build relationships with people in that space. And I get up there, and there's 2 people that I hadn't seen in the club before. And mind you, I know most of these members because I talk to them on a daily basis. So most people in the club on a nightly basis, I know who they are. I get up there, and there's 2 people, look like they're having a good time. And I know whose seats they're sitting in, but they're not the owner of those seats. And so I go out and I introduce myself. Hey, my name's Tanner. I manage half these spaces. I actually know whose seats those are. How'd you come out today? Like, who do you know? Oh, I know the owner of the seats. Cool. Tell me how you know him. And I start building a relationship and asking questions. I don't want anything from them. That's the biggest key right here. I don't want anything from them. I'm doing my day one job. Great. First step to cultivating relationships, do your day one job beautifully. Be great at what you're doing right now. And make it about them. That's the biggest piece about building a relationship. Make it about them. In this story, it's not a story. It happened. This is real. In this situation, I start asking them. There's a guy and a girl. I don't know who they are. Start asking them, hey, what do you do for work? He ends up being a realtor. Her husband they happen to be brothers and sisters. Her husband ends up owning a couple companies, investing here, investing there. And I'm like, I'm so intrigued. I don't invest in a lot of things right now. Tell me more. He ends up investing. Again, I don't want to tell all of his secrets. There's a couple different companies that have nothing to do with each other. I'm like, that's so interesting. Like, keep telling me more. And all of a sudden I get done with the conversation and I leave, and he comes up to me. He said, hey man, like, why'd you come up to us? And I was like, well, I just want to know and learn about you, because that's my job, is I get to build relationships with everybody in the space. I'm like, why'd you have that conversation with me? We just spent 25 minutes having a conversation. Why'd you do that? And he goes, oh, I watched you bust your butt the whole first quarter of the game. I saw you dripping in sweat down there. And I knew that you had a good work ethic. I knew that you were about hard work. That's why I had that conversation. So my day one was working hard, not knowing that somebody else was watching. And then my job is building relationships. My career path is building relationships. So I did that on the second level. Guys, those two people right now, one of them is my realtor, who happens to be helping with he's helped me start Attitude for Results, the LLC. He also is going to help me build a contract for when we get a rental property. He also introduced me to somebody in the mortgage space who's going to do our loan. In addition to that, the girl that was there that day, her husband is now my wife's boss. He now has seats with me. Do you guys see how relationships work like that? It's not about you. If you give, whether that person gives or somebody else, the guy that I now work with and now owns the company that my wife works for wasn't even there that day. But his wife and his wife's brother saw that I wanted to give, saw that I wanted to create a relationship, not because I wanted anything, but because cultivating relationships is about them. It's about giving. That's the first story. That's how you cultivate and build relationships from the start. Another one is about the organization I work for, and I have to toe the line with this one very carefully. I'm going to toe the line with this one very carefully. Talk about day one. I happen to be decent at what I do for work. By being decent at what I do for work, it has provided a couple different opportunities for me to have conversations with very high-level individuals. The first, I get into Phoenix, I start doing my job, I work diligently at my job. Our CRO, Chief Revenue Officer, basically like second or third in charge of our billion-dollar company that I work for, reaches out to my manager, not me directly, reaches out to my manager and says, hey, that guy's working hard. I need to have a conversation with him. He's new to the organization. Chief Revenue Officers, obviously on the revenue-generating side of the business. So was I. I'd like to have a conversation with him. Nothing that I did except for my job, doing my day one well, nothing else that I did gave me this opportunity. But others will seek you when you do your job great. You want to have conversations with CEOs and CROs and owners, and it's not about walking up to them and asking them a couple questions. It's about doing your day one and putting yourself in rooms that others don't even know that you're there. It's about putting yourself in rooms that you don't even belong in. And you do that by doing your job well. Long story short, I have an opportunity to have an hour-long lunch, me and our Chief Revenue Officer, only a couple months into moving to this area. He's been with the organization. He's seen it grow. I get to learn about his family. I want to be a high-level executive one day. You have a couple kids. How do you manage that? And guess what? I'm now building relationships and cultivating relationships and learning about when I have kids. I'm not going to have kids for years. My kids aren't going to be 13 and 16 like his are for almost 20 years, but I'm building that muscle now. All because I worked hard in day one. The second is an awesome story. So we take our premium members and our partners to Vegas for Summer League every year. An appreciation, most teams do this, an appreciation for what they do with us, and we show them appreciation by doing that. There are 7 people on our team. One person gets to go and cultivate relationships with these individuals, high-level individuals, and we get to fly to Vegas. This year, a couple different things. One, I don't have kids. Most of my team members do. They look to me because it was during the weekend. One conversation with Callie, I said, hey, I need to go on this trip. This is an opportunity for me to get in front of extremely high-level individuals, not only outside of our organization, but also inside of our organization. I know it was the week before our wedding. Callie, I know that the week before our wedding, me going to Vegas by myself isn't the greatest thing or idea you've ever heard in your life. But I promise you, Callie, I'm going to build relationships. Everybody in the world's like, oh, yeah, dude, you want to go to Vegas a week before your wedding? Like, I'm sure it has some relationship and career-driven mindset behind it. It did, I promise you. She knew the sacrifice that it was going to take. I had to sacrifice my time with her the week before our wedding, literally 7 days before we walked down the aisle. And I had to sacrifice my time because now I have to take time out of my day to go out there. And Callie knows my values. My values and my goals are clearly defined, and that's to grow personally and professionally. So when this opportunity came up, Callie was all in. Hey, you want to go build your career. This is an opportunity for you to do this. That's a no-brainer. So, no-brainer, we're going to Vegas. Week before our wedding. Great idea, Tanner. We board the plane. We fly an airline that does not have assigned seating. And I happen to see an open chair next to our SVP of Partnerships, Senior Vice President of Partnerships. So, when I got on this plane, my mentality was like, don't sit next to anybody you work with, don't sit next to anybody you work with. The reason being is I had to write my vows. So I wanted to sit on a plane, silence, and write my vows. Because I thought that was a great time to write my vows is on my way to Vegas a week before the wedding. So I see this opportunity to sit next to the SVP of Partnerships. And I'm like, you know what? He's a good dude. Like, he'll probably leave me alone, and I'll be able to do this. And then I don't have to sit next to a stranger. That sounds great. So I sit down, and he starts talking right away. And I push him off the first couple times. So we're getting back to cultivating relationships. It's about sacrifice. I sit down, and he starts talking. And I'm like, really? In my head, I'm like, oh, I really have to write these vows. Like, Callie's going to absolutely kill me. I need to write these vows. He starts talking. I try to push him off once or twice. All of a sudden, I'm like, you know what? Why are you here, Tanner? You are here to cultivate relationships. You are here to grow. Sacrifice time in a different way to write your vows. Close the book. I get an hour of uninterrupted time on the plane. Okay, and this is how relationships snowball. Stick with me. So I get an hour of relationship building with him on the plane. Because of that conversation, we now get to Vegas. He then goes to his boss and says, hey, this dude, Tanner, is decent at his job. I think you need to have a conversation with him. So I get an opportunity to have a conversation with his boss. His boss says, hey, come grab a drink with us after dinner. I want to talk to you about a couple things that we have going on in the organization. Awesome. I do that. While we're grabbing a drink, okay, remember, this is all snowballing from me making one decision, and that's to sit down, put my phone away, put my notepad away, and create a relationship. While we're sitting here, he says, hey, man, great. Like, I got to go. I hope you have a good time. At that time, our CEO comes into the place where I'm at, starts to have a conversation. I now get 30 minutes of time with our CEO, just me and him. You got to take some risks in life. You got to sacrifice time. If I don't communicate my values to Callie and how I want to grow personally and professionally, that's a tougher conversation to me to go to Vegas. If I don't communicate or if I don't sacrifice my time and Callie's time to go on that trip, I never get to talk with our CEO. If I don't sacrifice my personal wants and sit next to that guy on the plane, I don't get a conversation with his boss, then I don't get a conversation with the CEO. It snowballs like that often. I built a relationship with my personal manager. The first time I got there, I started talking about the podcast and how I want to grow in entrepreneurship. I just won an award the other day in front of 250 people on our team, and the only thing that was said in my manager's acceptance speech or whatever speech he gave for me was about the podcast. All because I built a relationship with him. 250 people that work for the organization that I do just heard about the podcast simply because I created a relationship. How great is that? Here's a story Hunter provides. And again, I'm giving you real life examples because relationships are the biggest thing that we have in our lives. Here's an example from Hunter. Hunter connected with AJ, was his manager at the time, through the University of Iowa Sport and Rec Management Club. AJ is a senior manager of the new business team, right? The inside sales entry level. He was on a group Zoom call When AJ provided his advice and insight on his role at the Diamondbacks, right after the Zoom, here's something that we talk about all the time. Right after the Zoom call, Hunter got his email, followed up with him with a thank you note. Ding, 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 write a thank you note. And he wanted to connect one-on-one again. Hunter, throughout the next couple months, cultivates a relationship with the manager. His manager actually reached out to Hunter and said, hey, man, I think you should apply directly through me. I don't think you should go into this 1,000-applicant stack because you've done two simple things. Followed up, built a relationship that was not directed at Hunter solely. Hunter did not reach out because he was selfish. He reached out to learn about him. He reached out to give advice, to gain knowledge. It's not selfish of him. Hunter's later invited to a showcase with 18 people in it, and there was 1,200 applicants. 1,200. And only 18 people get to come to this thing. All because he built a relationship. Interview process obviously goes well. He obviously earns the role. But the opportunity to apply an interview would never have become possible if Hunter did not cultivate that relationship with AJ. Also, those of you who have been with us since day one know how passionate I am about not submitting a resume. Hunter did not submit a resume for his new role until he officially had to, which is basically for HR reasons. I said it on a call the other day with somebody. I will never submit a resume again. That actually matters. Will I submit one every time I get a new job for HR reasons? Yeah, probably. But if you've been with us since day one, you understand how passionate I am about that. I'm pretty passionate about that. Those are some personal stories about how cultivating relationships work, not just for you, but for others. Here's one that worked for others, for me. I've mentioned it in multiple. You know what? I'm done with personal stories. Let's go into actionable steps. Let's help you guys out. Let's get active here. All right. Actionable steps on how you can cultivate relationships and get what you want in life. It is not manipulation. It is genuine relationship building, and people just don't know how to act. People are like, oh my goodness, you actually want to learn about me? Blah, 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 blah. Who doesn't like talking about themselves? Everybody loves talking about themselves. So when you're building relationships, ask about them. Ask about them. I challenge you in conversations, notice, just consciously notice. You don't have to do anything. Just consciously notice how often you talk about you. Hunter comes up and says something simple. Oh, man, this guy's having a great day in fantasy. All of a sudden you go, oh, yeah, he's on my team. Oh, yeah, I'm playing against him. Why do we do that? I do it also, all the time. Why do we do that? Callie come home. Cal come home. That didn't even make any sense. I can't even talk right now. Callie comes home. We have dinner. I go, hey, tell me the best part of your day. Because also, side note, the question, how's your day? That sucks because that just leaves it open, and we mostly go towards the bad because that's how our brain works, is a negative loop. Always ask the question, what's new and good about your life instead of how's your day? Side note, that has nothing to do with today's episode, but I hate when people say, how's your day? It's a stupid question because you're always going to talk negative. So just tell me the best part of your day. Then I don't have to listen to you talk about negative stuff. Nobody wants to hear about it anyways. All right. I go, hey, tell me what's new and good. She goes, yeah, well, my manager was talking to me today, and I got to talk to a couple new people today. Immediately I go, oh, no way, I talked to a couple new people today. Why do we do that? I challenge you. How often do you flip the conversation to you? How often do you flip the conversation to you? And we all have those people who ask questions just so they can answer. God, those are the worst. Those are the worst type of people. Where they're like, hey, how's your day? And you're like, good. They're like, great, my day went like this. And then for 30 minutes, you don't even talk. You're like, oh my goodness, please be quiet. Stop talking. You asked me a question simply for you to answer. If you're one of those people, stop, please. Please stop. That's so annoying. All right. I went off a tangent. Actionable steps on how you can cultivate relationships and get what you want. Handwritten notes, you've heard it multiple times on the show. However, we could say it in every single episode we release, and the majority will still never do it. It's the easiest way to stand out and show sincere gratitude because nobody writes handwritten notes anymore. Nobody writes handwritten notes anymore. It's the easiest way to stand out. Never underestimate or undervalue the power of a handwritten note. The power of a handwritten note is immense. I had a manager in Miami. As I was leaving, I met him 6 years ago, probably today. As I was leaving a year ago, so I knew him 5 years at the time. He goes, hey man, I hope you do well, blah, blah, blah. By the way, I still have the handwritten note that you sent me when I was a sophomore in college. He goes, I can count on my hands how many handwritten notes I have over the last 5 years. I still have yours and I remember it. If you need anything from me ever, let me know. 5 years, guys. And he knows exactly who wrote him. A director of an enterprise of Formula One, Miami Open, and Miami Dolphins. Because that's how few people do it. The second actionable step is set a schedule and build out an Excel spreadsheet for your connections, for your relationships. Is this over the top? Yes. Is this how you succeed in life? Yes. People are like, oh yeah, I'll build relationships. Like whenever I just feel like it, I'll just text them again. No. Build it out. Set reminders on your phone. All of my friends will get a birthday, and if you're married, an anniversary text from me. But guess what? That's not the only time that you're going to hear from me. Because you also have people in your life, I know you do, that will only reach out to you when it's your birthday. You're like, wow, great, dude. You really care about me. Every 365 days, you say 2 words with 3 exclamation points and maybe an emoji. Wow, this is an awesome relationship. Thanks for having it. It sounds tedious, but just do it. Build an Excel spreadsheet with your top 100 connections. If you have top 100 connections, I'll give you 65 days off. You should text that person 3 times a year at the very minimum. And text them with gratitude. I appreciate you. I love you. Give a specific example. I love that you brighten up the room when you walk in. I love how passionate you are every time we see each other. We might not see each other for 6 months, but every time it feels like the first time. Just do it. As we've said, just count down in your head. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Go. Just do it. Just do it. Another form of active step that you can do for cultivating a relationship is ask for 15 to 30 minutes of your coworker's time, your manager's time, your classmate's time, your professor's time, your director's time. Go, if you work in a sports facility, go walk laps around the concourse of the field. If you're at school, grab lunch. You guys all just swipe cards anyways for lunch, right? It's like free money. Just like, we had Hawk dollars at Iowa. Just swipe it. Most of you guys are probably not even paying for your own stuff. It's just your parents' money, dude. Just go swipe it. And while you're at it, grab me some food, dude. Just swipe that thing. Just go ask for 15 to 30 minutes. Oh, I cracked myself up. But when you get those 15 to 30 minutes, come prepared with questions to ask. It's obvious when somebody is reaching out to look for what they want or so that they look good versus connecting with good intentions. I'm going to get super fired up. When people reach out to me, they're like, hey, man, I want to connect. First of all, I always say go look at the podcast first. We dedicate a ton of time. As soon as you have a base understanding of who I am, what I do, and what I'm about, now you and I can connect. Because you're going to ask the same 4 questions that everybody does that I've covered in 35 episodes. And now I'm wasting my time. So when you get 15 to 30 minutes of somebody's time, come prepared with questions and make it about yourself. Make it about the person you're reaching out to. Make it valuable and specific to the situation. Here's a cool one. Over the last 4 months, I've actually done this, okay? I've been in the sports industry for 6 years. I'm doing this currently. Over the last 4 months, I've connected with our HR program, our HR team, our promotions team, our security team, our communications team, and our social media team. Why did I do that? Simply to learn about them. That's it. I had no ulterior motives. I want to learn about them. I want to learn what HR does. I want to learn what our promotions and marketing team does. I want to learn how security works at the stadium. I want to learn how we communicate. When we have a press conference, what questions are being asked? How are we able to navigate that process? Social media. How do you guys post? Are you able to talk to the players and have a relationship? What does that look like? I actually want to know that stuff. So my genuine curiosity allowed me to have these conversations, okay? The least thing that comes out of these conversations is knowledge. That's the worst thing that happens, is you just get to learn. The best thing is cultivating a relationship so strong, and you get to help others. That's the best thing about those type of conversations. 2 examples. One, I had a guy the other day. I won't say where he goes. He's an athlete. He's a D1 athlete. Him and I had a conversation. I'm like, hey, he listens to the podcast. He reached out and had specific questions to him and his career path. He's a senior. He reached out. He said, hey, man, I really want to learn about this. My end goal is to be an athletic director. We had a 30-minute conversation, and I had to go. Well, guess what? Because he was genuine in his conversation and his questioning, and because I had a conversation with our head of HR, and the head of HR with the organization I work for happened to be an athletic trainer, athletic director at one point in his career. Actually, most of his career, about 15 to 20 years, he was in the high school system, athletic director, superintendent, that realm, right? So because 2 different factors happened, he reached out with great intentions and was prepared with great questions. I just happened to want to learn about HR and learned that this individual had been an athletic director before and worked in the school system for a while. Guess what? I connect them both. Now, one, that guy with our organization gets to teach and learn and give knowledge about his career path, which people love talking about themselves, to a young individual. That's what we want. That's our passion. That's our impact. In addition, this young D1 athlete wants to learn about what happens after sports. And now he gets to go and connect with a professional organization, a professional sports team, who the guy happened to be in the profession he wants to be in at one point. Is that not awesome? In addition, because I've been doing these conversations, this one goes really deep. Kyron, who runs our social media, reached out and said, hey, I want to do something more. Hunter said it in an episode before. What else can you add to your plate? What else can you add to your plate? How else can you grow? She wants to grow with the podcast. 3 months go by. Because she's great at what she does, she now has the opportunity to reach out and say, hey, can you connect me with somebody on your team? I would love to learn more about social media. I don't know a lot about social media, and that's why I don't do it myself. That's why Kyron and Maddie run all of it and are phenomenal at it. Guess what? I love how Kyron does her day one, and I want to help her so much. It hurts how much I want to help my team. Because I had those conversations with social media, I get to now connect her with a Grammy-winning individual who happens to work for the same organization I do. How valuable is that for Kyron, who's in her grad program, who decided to take a chance, go out on a limb, and do social media for a podcast with no followers at the time? It's because she wanted to learn. It's because she did her day one. That's how you cultivate relationships. And guess what? It works. It works all the time. And that conversation might not mean anything to you at the time. It might take years. And that's why people don't do it. That's why people don't like doing it. Because a lot of people out there are lazy. And I thank you. Everybody out there who's lazy, thank you. You make our lives easier. Because there's not instant gratification with building and cultivating relationships, people hate it and don't do it. And people are like, oh my gosh, you get to go to LA and not pay for tickets. Oh, you have friends all over the country. You never pay for hotel rooms. Lucky you. You're just lucky. It's not luck. It's relationships. It's about giving to others. The best thing about us working in sports, Hunter and I working in sports, truthfully right now, is the opportunity that I feel weird saying this because he's actually in our condo as we're recording this, but it's true. My first cousin just moved out here. And the greatest thing about what we get to do now is Hunter and I create relationships and create experiences for people that we don't know every single day. And now that I have a family member out here, I get to do it for him. That's awesome. And guess what? I was creating these relationships 5 years ago when my cousin was in grade school. And now that he's a sophomore in college and happened to move out here, we get to go to LA to potentially watch a Packers game, to potentially go to an Iowa Hawkeye game. I was creating these relationships when he was in grade school. It works. It's awesome. When you get to that spot, it is awesome. Cultivating great relationships is the greatest thing that you can do in your life. And you do it by giving. You give your time, your money, your resources to help others. And at the end of the day, you get to win time and time again. Thank you for being here with us today. We are fired up about our recent partnerships with the clubhouse and all the universities that we're partnering with. Check us out and follow us on our socials. Again, if you have or are a part of a college or university and want us to either speak in your classes or be a part and partner so we can help you and help your people. If you want to have impact on your university or college, you can do that. You can be an ambassador for change and impact. Reach out to us, let us know. Let's inspire others and continue to grow together.